Welcome to the SaturdayMP Show, episode number 51, being recorded mostly live, September 30th, 2024. This is a show about shipping secure, high-quality software faster, and most of the time we do that through actually like kind of hands-on demos or live coding or answering questions. But today it's just going to be me pre-recording a talk that I'm going to give later this week. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit different today. And the talk is going to be kind of this video, and this talk is going to be about some security issues I've seen with clients kind of in the wild, like in real life, and just a couple stories about those. So that's what we're going to do. So yeah, I'm your host, Chris. And because today is September 30th, I'm trying to pay more attention when I record these videos. It's actually National Truth and Reconciliation Day in Canada. It's kind of a day to honor Indigenous people and kind of remember some of the trials and tribulations they went through, especially with the schools that the federal government had set up for them, which were not great places to be, from my understanding. So it's a relatively new holiday in Canada. It's actually a federal holiday, so a lot of people aren't working today. And hence why I'm just wearing, unfortunately, I don't have any orange t-shirts, so I'm wearing a black t-shirt. But that's why I'm not all dressed up today. Like sometimes when I record these videos on Mondays, it's usually days that I have client work. So I try to, usually I have to wear something a little nicer. But today, yeah, I don't. So yeah. So if you get a chance, you can do some research about that, and hopefully we as a country can continue those discussions about how we've treated some people in the past and keep going forward. So I think overall it's a good holiday. So, all right. So with that out of the way, and the next thing we'll jump to is the other bookkeeping stuff. Is if you do have any questions that you want me to answer, or that you'd like for things to be discussed in future videos, or just any feedback in general, you can send an email to ask@SaturdayMP.com, or you can also put comments in the links below if you're watching this on YouTube. Constructive comments or good questions or stuff like that, that'd be much appreciated. So, all right, so let's get on with this discussion. So basically this is a pre-recording of my presentation. I have basically the presentation, I think I have about half an hour total. So I'm going to try and keep this presentation to 20 minutes, hence why there's no demo or anything like that. So just kind of keep it short. About 20 minutes, 25, and that gives time for people to ask questions and stuff like that. So let's see, this is almost a test run of how this will go. So if you see, like I said, I record these videos mostly live. So if there's any awkward pauses just like that. So if I'm going through this presentation, I'm probably going to be taking notes to myself. And I like to kind of record these ones live again so that I think a lot of times people only ever see polished products. They never see all the work that goes behind it. And so you're kind of getting behind the scenes because I'm too lazy to edit most of my videos, but you're getting behind the scenes of how things work, and how, like, when I prepare a talk, I have to practice it a couple times to get the length right, and kind of what I want to talk about, and kind of how I want to present it. So I've practiced this a couple times by myself and gone through it, but this will be the first time I'm kind of recording it. And this, I think I've recorded some other presentations, but they were hands-on ones before. But this is one where, I don't know, you're just going to see me and the slides. So we'll see. I'm not sure how I'm going to, I'm not sure I'm going to present myself, my pretty face, for this one. So we'll see how this goes. All right. So like I said, this talk is going to be just a couple examples of security issues I have seen in the wild with clients, and just kind of just like a little bit of stories about them, and then kind of how to fix them. It's not going to be anything like really in depth or very technology specific. So I'm giving this conference. I guess I should note that I actually am giving this conference for the people watching the video that don't know. Let's see if I can. Right. So I'm giving this present. There's the meetups. Yeah. So I'm giving the presentation for this. Oh, okay. So they do have a website. Cool. It's the JavaScript, Ruby, and Python Meetup, which will be, I'm recording this on a Monday. It's presentations on a Thursday. So yeah. So what else am I trying to say? Yeah, I guess that's what I'm doing. So that's an audience that's what I was trying to get to. This is the audience I'm trying to present this for. So hopefully if you're watching this, if you're not interested in any of that, or you're not just interested in security, you might just want to drop off this video, but otherwise stick around. If you're not part of the Dev Edmonton Society, you don't have to live in Edmonton to join it. They have a Slack and everything. It's a really great place. I highly recommend that you join it. So, all right. So just some information about me. I'm a software consultant, and I run my own one-person software consulting shop since 2009 called Saturday Morning Productions. Before that, I worked for mostly small companies, but some big ones as well. I'm also the host of the weekly dev chat. So I created the weekly dev chat and hosted. I created it during COVID. It's a virtual chat, mostly about software development, every Tuesday at noon. And again, you're welcome to join that. That's kind of open to anyone. So if you just Google weekly dev chat, there's instructions on how to join that. And I got the idea for the weekly dev chat from the Legacy Code Rocks community, which also has a weekly virtual chat. That's every 11 a.m. Mountain Time. So you have to adjust whatever time zone you're in for that. And I co-host that every once in a while and kind of help lead that conversation. So again, both of these chats are real casual. There's no formal presentation like this one. It's just come, sit, and chat with other software developers about various topics. If you ever want to get a hold of me, I'm active on the Dev Edmonton Slack channel, the Legacy Code Rocks Slack channel, and the YAGSEC, which is a local Edmonton security group channel. And you can see there's my where's my picture? There's my picture. That's that picture I use for all of those ones there. So if you see that picture, that's me. All right. So like I said before, this talk is going to be about cyber insecurity or security issues that I've personally witnessed. Maybe I've possibly caused some of them in my 20 plus years of software development. You know, things have changed over the years. So here's kind of a list of some of the ones. I think there's a couple more that I probably could have added to the list, but this was lots. I didn't want to overfill the slides. So these are the ones that I've kind of seen. And you'll notice a kind of one interesting thing is a lot of these aren't to do with code per se, like an injection or like a SQL injection or something like that. A lot of the security issues I've seen are more process-based, or they're more kind of what the code is sitting on, like the stack or how the environment that the code is running in is set up. So like during my actual presentation is to be the part where I ask the audience what kind of security issues they've seen. But since it's recorded video, feel free to leave yours down below. I'd love to hear about some of the cyber insecurity you've witnessed in the wild. That would be great. Let me know. And so one thing to note too, these are just stories of mine. Like this presentation is just a couple antidotes. I can't say that word. Antidotes? Anyway, they're just my particular one-off stories. They're not kind of like any best practices or anything like that. If you want to see kind of more best practices and kind of like what's happening in industry as a whole and other things you should look out for, I highly recommend OWASP, which is a great website. Like there's OWASP Top 10, like I have an image of it here. I think they're working on the one for 2000 for 23 or 24 right now, and they kind of list the issues that they see or that the business in general sees, and then the issues they see and they categorize them and compile them into a list. And so you can see in 2021, broken access control was like the #1 issue that they saw, and that broken access control means that you're able to access data. Like if you log in as, say, Chris C as a user, maybe you're able to access data that you shouldn't be able to as Chris C, or there's no credentials, like you could just access an API or a page, with just by changing the URL or something like that. So yeah, so I highly recommend OWASP to kind of get the lay of the security land. And the other thing I really like about OWASP is they have these cheat sheets. And they are really great because they are technology specific, like a framework or a language or something like that. And I really like them because they have hands-on or like examples of what to do and what not to do. So they're not just kind of like high level, like just write secure code. They say like, hey, when you're using this technology, set this flag to false. Or when you write code using this language, write it like this, not like this. So I guess because we're online, I guess we could do a quick, I could show some of those. So there's the OWASP. We can make that a little bigger. Right, so here's the cheat sheets, and then you can see all the interesting, all the frameworks and the languages and stuff on the side. So like if you go look at like like Rails here, right? So they talk about command injection, don't do that. Basically, a lot of languages don't run commands. SQL injection, authentication, how to make sure your authentication. Like, see, I love it because they're like do this, like make sure everything is over SSL. And then there's Node.js here. Security, right? So they're clickbacks, or I'm not as familiar with Node as I am other languages, but apparently that's bad. So this would be good. Don't like have really large requests because maybe it'll bog down your server, stuff like that. So I really like this. So if you're writing a product or you're a website or you're going through an existing one, it's probably a good idea, and you have a chance to kind of go through security, go through these, and it'll kind of give you an idea of what to avoid and what settings to make. So, all right, so let's get to particular stories. So the first one that I've seen is hard-coded secrets in source code or credentials or anything like that. So this is probably the most common issue I've seen. And I guess I should also point out a lot of these issues I used to work with a company called Corgi Bytes as a subcontractor there. And a lot of these were through code inspections. Some of them are also before that time. It's just stuff that I noticed with some clients before then and a couple with clients after. But most of this is when I was working with Corgi Bytes, which unfortunately doesn't do consulting anymore. They closed the consulting side of their business, but they're still around. So yeah, but this is the one that I like every time we did a code inspection, or even oftentimes when I look at existing client code, like there's probably something hard coded in the source code. So either some sort of credential like a password or an Amazon or third party service key, or there's something in there that's been committed. So this is probably the biggest one I see, and as a developer that you're kind of really responsible. You can't really pawn this one off on IT or anything like that. This is your fault. Don't do this. So probably the best way to get around this is to basically just don't enter any of this stuff into source code to begin with. You want to use something like environment files or basically keep anything of a config outside, environment variables, stuff like that. So the one, I don't know if I'll show these during the videos, but there's the 12-factor app. So this is kind of an interesting way, like when you set up an application, it's got some like kind of 12 best practices, and number 3 is the config. Let's make that a little bigger. And this talks about not storing your configuration or making sure that you know which configuration is consistent across your environments, like development, UAT, and production, and which settings aren't and that should not be in there. They should be unique to each environment, and they're not committed to source code control. So, so there's some ideas about how to fix that. So I've seen it with, I've seen, let's go back one. Yeah, like I've seen similars. I haven't seen a setup exactly like this one that I kind of this example that I just made up to show in a screenshot. But one example I saw with a client that they would have the name of the server, so it would say if it's this particular server, use this database connection string, and then they had different servers for like UAT, and then at this a lot of their work was being done on AWS virtual machines, which were basically just a clone of the production machine. This client had lots of issues. So they weren't even using source code control, but that's how they were doing development. So, and then there's only a couple developers, but everyone's machine would have like a case statement in there to tell it to connect what database it should connect to on AWS for testing. So it was not great. That was kind of a pain to remove all that. Yank all those out of there. The other one I've seen, so one of the problems with having all these hard-coded secrets in source code is even if you delete them, they're still like, so people can search a history of the source code and find them. And then a lot of times you're going to have developers that, most developers are going to be honest. Most employees that you hire or contractors are going to be honest. But if there is one that's not, they have access to that credential that they might have cut and pasted or put somewhere else. Or even if they are honest, maybe they still have the source code on their machine, or they somehow leak the source code and some other bad guy can see it. So again, that one client, well, I guess it was the same client that had all sorts of issues, like they weren't using Git and stuff like that. But they had, so the AWS, if you notice at the bottom there, there's the SES key. So that's simple, I can't click on simple email service, which is Amazon's, like it just allows your application to send emails through it is basically what it is. And that key somehow got out, and actually shortly after we took over, like I started helping that client, it somehow got out, and yeah, basically someone used it to send a bunch of spam. In that particular case, they sent the spam messages were all in French, and they were sent to a lot of, I think it was .fr, whatever the France email domain is. And when you looked at the emails, they were basically an email for a French bank, well, like a fake French bank, where people would go there, like it was basically phishing, and they would click on it, and then they would enter their bank credentials. So one of the problems is AWS detects a bunch of spam, like it detects that they are sending spam using your whatever credential key. They will turn off your email sending ability, so your app can't send any emails. And then you have to spend a couple days basically writing back and forth with Amazon, telling them, they basically want to know what the problem is and how you fixed it so it doesn't happen again, so they're not sending out a bunch of spam. So I've had to do that once for this client, once for a different client, and both times it's taken about 2 to 4 days to get that issue resolved. So, and usually these are smaller clients, so we're not a huge. I usually work with small, medium-sized businesses. So, but yeah, so basically your email is going to be down for a couple days if that happens. So that was one interesting thing that I saw where that key got leaked. Because the interesting thing about this key here is you don't need the simple email service key. Is you could just write a script and just start sending command lines. Like there's no other real protection, or you can't really like protect the simple email service by, I think you can actually add an IP address or something like that, which I think we did as well. But there's not a lot of other protections going on there, so you don't want that key to leak. So how do you fix this if you do find this in source code, a key or something like that? So kind of the recommended way I propose to fix it is to, step one is you create the new credential, whatever it is, the password, the key or whatever. So you create that, and then it's going to be different. Like in development, ideally you have different keys. Like in development, maybe your database is local, and then in UAT, there's UAT database, and then in production, obviously you have a production database, so you have different ones. So you create those new credentials, starting with your development one, and you leave the old one in there, kind of running side by side. And then once you confirm that the new one works, then you remove the old one from source code. And of course, it's going to be in the history, but who cares? It's an invalid key or password now. So just have them run both side by side, and that gives you a nice fallback. So if for some reason, because oftentimes when people have hard-coded stuff, they have to figure out how to get this in their environment or into their build pipeline or something like that. That gives you a nice fallback so that your application isn't down if you do a hard switch over and it fails. So just keep both of those credentials active at the same time. And then once you're sure that you're using the new one, deactivate the old one, delete it, whatever, and you're good to go. So yeah. The next one I see quite often, at least the one I've seen in person, is, and I hear it's quite frequently happens, is the database applications using is publicly accessible. So you don't want that. Like, there's usually very little reason for your database to be accessible to anyone on the internet. Usually there's kind of two things that need to access, maybe three, two to three things that need to access your database. One is the application. That's like, so in production, so I should say too, these are public, these are either UAT staging databases or a production database. So the only thing that access your production database is your production version of your app. And then the other thing that maybe needs to access your production database is developers if they need to debug something, but then you would grant that very specific access to one person or to an IP address. The third thing, sometimes people have other, like maybe a reporting application or something, like basically other applications aside from your main one. Oftentimes it's reporting. That's the one I see quite often that needs to access that database. So to do that, you should turn public access off if possible. If you need to have public access on, like if you're in AWS and you have some sort of service that's outside of AWS and it still needs to access the database to run queries or something like that, you want to set up some sort of firewall, or in Amazon's case, you're going to like set up a security group, and you're going to limit it only to those developers that need access to production, and limit that to that IP address of that. Like say if you have some third-party reporting service or something, just limit to that IP address. So don't make that publicly accessible. Even if you have a great password and stuff like that, that's going to be a problem because people can just brute force it. Eventually, they will probably guess your database password. So one client was interesting because, again, going back to, how do we go back? There we go. I saw that they had database credentials inside of their source code. So I was reviewing their source code and I saw that and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So then I went, I actually tried online to connect to their database, and lo and behold, I could, because their AWS database was publicly accessible. They didn't have any filtering on it at all. So yeah, it was kind of I think a little bit of an eye opener for everyone. So, they should have limited that to that database. And that's another problem. So that kind of goes, but like security issues will kind of compound on each other. Like one little issue could, like having a publicly accessible database, maybe not be an issue, but maybe if you have the hard code credentials in your source code, now it does, because any past developer with access to that source code can now log into your production database. So that's a problem. Don't do that. All right, so that's the kind of those two of them. And the third one I'll talk about, which also kind of, so the one thing you'll see with publicly accessible anything is you're going to see a bunch of brute force attacks on something. So maybe you'll see a bunch of requests for data. So like going back to our previous example, you see a bunch of requests to access that database where people just trying to guess passwords or going through a password list or something like that. The one I see all the time on clients' websites and my own websites is somebody running some sort of script that is clearly just like just looking for vulnerabilities, like kind of the example here. I think it's pretty much looking like, if you look down below, it's looking for WQB content, so it's WordPress. So it's trying to see, like, it has no idea that this website, it isn't running WordPress, but it's just looking for a bunch of things. It's looking for like an about, it's looking for admin, upload. So you often see scripts that just look for common domains and names and stuff like that just run. And the way to the other thing I've seen actually before we say how to, obviously the way to fix it is to add rate limiting. But the other way to the other issue I've seen with this is when people have a registration page or a login page, people just keep hitting it. So a different client than kind of my previous examples that we had was they had a registration page and they got hit by a bunch. Basically, someone found their page and just did a script that just kept sending create new accounts over and over and over and over and over again. And it was also dumping, like, it was also looking for SQL injection attacks and stuff like that. So some of the names were really weird. You know, they would be formatted for an injection, either SQL or for, what's that other type of injection called? Cross-site scripting attacks, like stuff like that, right? They're just trying to inject something that the application won't be able to handle correctly. In our case, the application could handle everything correctly, which was good. But the problem was because it created all those new users and then it just started spewing out a bunch of emails. I'm pretty sure that was the other client where I had to deal with the Amazon SES, that they had a whole, like, basically because we would send out like, hey, you registered for this new email address, or you registered for this account emails, and that got all flagged to spam, and then it got shut down again. So, which is a huge pain in the butt. It takes a couple of days to get that reactivated. So in any case, what you want to do for most of your applications is just add some sort of rate limiting. So you could do that behind a third-party thing. So I think Cloudflare is kind of one of the more popular ones, but there's some third-party services you could use that'll help rate limit. And also act as a firewall to prevent it probably would block a bunch of these requests for WP content and stuff like that. You can also, various frameworks or applications will prevent that. So you can rate limit by, setting up the verify if you're human, which may or may not work. And then various frameworks will have different things to limit, like say, hey, like only let someone try, like if you see this login request happen 3 times in a row, like start locking their account out. So like I did do an example of that for a .NET application. Actually, there's another video. I can't remember. I think it was the TPS reporter one where the .NET you can add like, hey, only allow people to log in like a couple times. If those fail, lock them out. You can also set up, say, like most Apache or Nginx will also have timeouts where you can start throttling requests. So when a bunch of requests come in, you can start throttling them to limit how much comes in. And then you can combine it with something like fail to ban to just outright ban that IP address. So if you see like a bunch of requests come in from one IP address faster than like a human should be able to click through your pages, then you can just start blocking them. Or if you see a bunch of these like 404 errors come in from the same IP address, then you could just outright block that IP address. So I've done an example with that in I think there's a previous video I have recorded of that as well. And there's also, I have a GitHub. Yeah, I have a GitHub thing for that. If you go to github.com. Yeah, well, there's the TPS report uploader. Oh, dang it. Where is, oh, there it is, rate limiting with Nginx and fail to ban. So yeah, so here's an example of, you can use Nginx and fail to ban to just basically ban IP addresses. So I've set that up before for clients. We've used like that one client that had all those requests come in through the login page. I can't remember exactly. We'd use some Rails features to help get around that, to start blocking clients and prevent multiple logins. And then that client actually got bought out by, they had recently bought out by a bigger one. So then I think they put their, I have to remember now, I think they put their firewall, they had a big corporate, one of those really expensive firewalls in front of it, which helped a lot too as well. So So yeah, set up some sort of rate limiting. So if those are the three that kind of go over there, is don't hard code your secrets in source code. Don't make your database or S3 bucket or anything publicly accessible, and set up some sort of rate limiting. So, and that is it. So this is obviously be the time for questions, but if you do have a question, because this isn't live, you can send some, or you can put them down below and maybe I'll answer them in a future video. Like I keep saying, I'd love to turn this into a question and answer video. But otherwise, I would like to thank you all for watching. I think I got that under 20. What's the time say? Oh, I probably talked really fast. I'll have to watch this back. And again, maybe this is kind of semi-live, so I'll probably watch this back and decide I talked really fast, which I think is kind of hard when I'm just staring at like a camera. With other live people, I like to, when I do live presentations, I like to have interactions with the audience, which helps slow me down. So if you have any feedback about the presentation, constructive feedback, that would be great. How I can improve my speaking. I'm trying to do that. I've been trying to do that for the last couple of, well, COVID kind of messed that up, but I've been trying to do that before COVID. You can find more information about security in general. OWASP is a great website to find stuff up there, to find things. And there's also a local Edmonton OWASP meetup group. And there's probably one, if you're watching this video, whatever region you're in, there's probably a local OWASP meetup group. In Edmonton, of course, we also have the YAG security group, which is great. I personally like listening to the Security Now podcast. I find that a really interesting one. But of course, there's a lot of other security-focused podcasts and shows you could probably watch on YouTube or on Spotify, whatever. Just Google around, you'll find it. There's that rate limiting example that I personally set up, but there's probably other ones as well. Of course, I have some other videos. If you're watching this one, you probably know I have some other security videos. Just check out the security playlist there. Yeah, if you have any questions, you can reach me at Chris. Maybe I will block that email address out there. That's probably something I should do. If you want to send, for the video at least, if you want to send me questions, you can send them to ask@SaturdayMP.com. That's probably the best. I don't want to make this any bigger. That's probably the best way. There's Zoom. Oh, there it is. Control plus. There we go. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can send them to ask@SaturdayMP.com, and then you can also throw some questions and comments or throw some questions and feedback in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube or something like that, feel free to share this video with others. And like and subscribe if you found this useful. The main reason for liking and subscribing, aside from boosting my ego, is that it just helps other people find this content. So if you found this content useful, and then you like and subscribe at YouTube, will just kick it up in whatever algorithm it's in, the algorithm it's using, and other people will be able to find it easier. So thank you all very much for watching. Thank you for spending your time with me. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Goodbye.